Hello, my beautiful friends. Maya Acosta, the host of the Healthy Lifestyle Solutions podcast, coming to you once again from my home studio. Very excited to have this conversation about blue zone living. My guest this time will be Michele Yasuda. And really briefly telling you about her before I invite her in. She is a certified Big Leap coach and Hendricks Institute graduate, and she guides people on their journey towards authenticity. She's been on the podcast before. I'm very excited to bring her on because we're going to talk about that new docuseries that's on Netflix, the one on how to live till you're 100 years old. This one has been put together by Dan Buettner based on the work that he's done throughout the years. I think it's been over the course of 20 years. He has promoted the blue zones. These are the areas throughout the world where people live the longest. They can become centenarians and never have like advanced chronic diseases. So we're going to have that conversation with Michele. Let me know if you have seen the docuseries on Netflix that's on longevity. Hi, Michele. Oh, so glad to have you. I just did a brief introduction of you and mentioned that we'll be talking about that docuseries that is now available on Netflix that highlights the blue zones. Please introduce yourself and tell us why you love the topic of blue zone living.
Well, my name is Michele Yasuda, and I am a Big Leap coach. That's one of my favorite aspects of my life. And what that means is that I have integrated and learned the wisdom and powerful tools of Katie and Gay Hendricks. And if you're interested in their work, you can look for the Big Leap. That's a really wonderful source for learning the kind of coaching that I do. And I became a fan of the blue zones many years ago. I got to attend a live lecture from Dan Buettner, and I was blown away. It was such a wonderful experience. And that was back in the days I homeschooled all three of my children from beginning of school year all the way through till they went to college. And one of the great things we used to do is go and listen to speakers. And Dan was absolutely one of my favorites and definitely had the most effect on my life. And so my partner, Dean, is a fitness trainer as well as a Big Leap coach. And so us coming together and then me bringing in the blue zones and introducing him to that was just a perfect fit. So we've been studying and practicing these kind of tools for, I don't know how many years now, probably about 10 years. And so I was so excited about Netflix and the series and I'd love to talk about it.
Yes, let's get started on this topic. And I'll just kind of mention it again. If you have not seen it on Netflix yet, please go check it out. I think the title is called Longevity, How to Live to 100 or something like that, by Dan Buettner. It's a 4-part docuseries. I love it. So I will tell you, as we approach this topic, Michele, I've been telling you about a camping trip that I organized for this weekend coming up. Mm-hmm. And the group wanted a theme. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what would be the theme? I know that I'm going out to nature because I find that nature is medicine for me. It's so good. Mm-hmm. And then I said, it's blue zone living. We're going to be in a group setting. We're going to come together, do activities together. There'll be physical activity. And before you know it, I put together this entire document to share with the group on blue zone living during this camping experience. So I'll give you the 4 pillars and I'd love for you to talk about it. I'm calling them pillars. They're not necessarily named that way, but when you see the docuseries, you'll see that Dan Buettner highlights 4 different things that are very common in the docuseries. One of them is just having a plant's land, it's about nutrition. He titles it Eat Wisely and gives you components, and that's how the documentary is laid out. The second one is natural movement. The third one is connect. It's all about community. And the fourth one, which I am working on, is outlook. Having that sense of purpose, having a faith in something greater. It just really a positive outlook on life can contribute to longevity. So you, as a life coach, Michelle, work in so many capacities in supporting people in these pillars. I'm calling them pillars right now. And I know that along with Dean, you even touch on the physical, being physically active. So please feel free to touch on any of those.
Oh gosh. So the thing that has struck me as so amazing is when the study happened, they found these 9 things that they found in all of the places that had the longest lived healthy people, healthy longest lived. And what I noticed about those, I think it's about 5 of them that have nothing to do with food, nothing to do with how we move our bodies. They're actually about our purpose in life, our ikigai. So that's one of the things that they found when they studied Okinawa, where the longest lived women are in the world, the whole world. These are the women that live the absolute longest, the most of them that live over 100 years old, and in a healthy way. And this is really important to my family because Dean's mom is 88 years old and she's Okinawan, and she is so much a wonderful example. And this is somebody who doesn't live in Okinawa. So this is the thing that I'm most interested in, is how can we bring these principles into our own life? Because it's great to see that there's these amazing places to live. Well, I'm not going to be able to move. I'm not choosing to go move to one of the blue zones. So how can I bring the blue zones here to my life? What really struck me is having purpose is one of these reasons why we continue to live a vibrant life. And so in Okinawa, they call it ikigai, and it's really our reason for being. It's like, why do I want to wake up in the morning and share myself with the world? And in the world of the Hendricks, we call this our genius, and we focus on essence qualities. So what are the qualities in me that land in some way that I can express in the world that not only fulfills me, but fulfills a need in the world? And so what I notice about in the blue zones is the people that live there continue to feel a reason for getting up in the morning. And another of the things they talk about in Okinawa is the moai. And this is a sense of community. It's not a sense of community, it is a community. So they have a very particular way that they do that. And what I notice is that, and Dan talks about how much longer we live when we connect regularly with others. So I think that that's one of the things that I notice about Dean's mom, is that she always has maintained connections with her like original friends. And for her, it's been challenging because she is outliving a lot of people, being 88 and being so healthy. But gathering with her friends and being able to connect and gathering with family has been something that's been so important to her. So I'll pause there because I said a lot and I want to see what you think about all of that.
Yes, I'm glad that you first started off with emphasizing that out of those 9 principles that are covered, that we learned from those 5 longevity or blue zones where people, become centenarians and don't have these advanced diseases. You talked about how out of those 9 principles, those 9 lessons that we can learn from these communities, 5 of them have nothing to do with food. Uh, and that became very important to me when I too began to learn about the blue zones. I focused so much on nutrition. Yes, we understand there's a nutrition plays a huge role in developing hypertension and cholesterol and diabetes if you're eating those heavily processed foods that are deep fried and all the other things, right? So nutrition is important. But then I began to understand in my own life, I'm making these healthy changes with my diet, but am I connecting with other people?
Mm-hmm.
Am I living a meaningful life? How's my
Mm-hmm.
happiness level? I
Mm-hmm.
started to question all of that the more that I learned about the blue zones. When I discovered that you also had that knowledge of nutrition, but also then everything else, moai, like you just said, which is that community that in Japan people are raised with to support one another. And then also, you're talking about ikigai, just that sense of purpose that we all, I think, internally long
Mhm,
for. Like, why am I
mhm,
here? How can
mhm,
I contribute to the world? I love that so
mhm.
much.
Yeah, and you just reminded me of one of the things that I love noticing is that I am born with that which I require in order to serve my purpose, in order to live my purpose. So for me, I recognize that well, I didn't recognize it as a young age. I recognize now that as a young person, I was always really interested in learning and growing and in connecting with others. And I think I had endless curiosity and a lot of energy, and I noticed that those qualities in me, along with a real caring and loving heart, um, those parts of me help me to be the coach that I am. And so, and I notice about you, Maya, that you have qualities in you that created um, this perfect ground for you to be an amazing podcaster and inspirer for people to live healthy lives. And so that's something that I think I would suggest to people is think about the things that make up who you are. And you might get these from asking other people. Like when you think of me, what do you think of? What's the first quality that you think of? And you might be surprised to find out what people think about you. And of course, you want to be asking people who you have really deep connections with when you're when you're wanting to check into this.
Yes, that's a good point. I don't know if I ever shared with you about this quiz that I took when I had somebody who specializes in the science of happiness.
Mm.
There is what is called the Institute, the VIA Institute of Character. And you take sort of this online quiz, and it'll basically highlight your top 5 character strengths.
Mm.
Basically, that when you're functioning in these strengths, you're the happiest. Right.
Ah.
And so I don't know if I ever told you about this. And so I looked it up recently because when you saw this on my social media, that my husband surprised me with a Pearl Jam concert.
Yeah. Yes, that is so fun.
And we had a conversation afterwards, like, why don't we go to concerts enough? And
Mm.
I felt so alive. Like, I'm the individual
Mm.
when I'm in a museum, when there's art, a theater performance, you name it, a concert. I'm like, don't bother me. Let me just be in this.
Ah.
And it makes me feel so good. And it's that appreciation of something that's so much greater than myself, and seeing other people
Mm.
excel in their field in this artistic way really highlights a lot. But I wanted to share with you the 5 real
Mm.
quick to see, because I know that you also work with people, and I feel like by working with you, I've been able to allow these strengths to come out and shine,
Mm.
and it serves my purpose. So I'm just going to
Mm.
tell you real quick. Number
Mhm.
1 is love of learning. I
Mm.
bet that's not a surprise to anyone.
Nope. That's
When I saw
wonderful.
that, I was like, "Oh my god, that's why I've always been a person
Of
that
course.
studies."
Yeah.
Oh my god. So I love to learn for the sake of learning. Number 2, appreciating beauty and excellence, which I just shared with you. Number 3, curiosity. And curiosity, even for me, feels that sense of like trying to understand myself. I'm just curious. I now understand with you as a coach, when you're even working with me, having that curiosity of what does this
Mm.
remind me of? Where could this be coming from? So I definitely want you to elaborate on that. Number 4 is honesty, just being able to speak my truth. I like being honest. I don't like being pretentious or fake it's just not within me. I
Mhm.
actually don't like being that way. And number 5, which surprised me, but not really, is kindness. Just being compassionate about what people experience, even if I am being annoyed by someone.
Mm.
For me, showing kindness, acts of kindness, love languages, that's a big one for me. I love doing things for people. That's how I show my love and
Mm.
appreciation for people. So, as we talk about those 5, feel free to talk about your work as a coach and how even all of that can tie into creating our own personal blue zone.
Oh, that's so fabulous. And I feel like you just described me. So no wonder we connect so well and we're buddies, because those are all qualities that I definitely have noticed in myself and in my work. One of the things that I learned from Katie and Gay Hendricks is if you're in your purpose, time disappears. It's like we move into space. There's room for our joy and our expression to happen. So that's one of the ways that, so that would be something I would suggest to people is, if you're in your purpose, you're going to be feeling a sense of aliveness, and time will disappear and you'll get very focused. So it's those times where if we lose track of time, we might actually like looking, oh, where did 2 hours go? Wow, because we were really enjoying what we were in. And of course, one of the skills that we need to have is, how can I be here with you and enjoying, and also keeping an idea on that time, because maybe I have another thing scheduled at 1 o'clock or whatever it might be. So the skill of being able to be fully engaged, present with where I am, and keep a sense of connection with the outside world, in this case, maybe time. And that's one of the tools that we teach, is the loop of awareness. And so this is a really practical tool that will give you a sense of wholeness that will be, well, it's just aliveness. It's just aliveness. And it's called the loop of awareness. This is something that Katie Hendricks invented. And so I'll just give you the basics of it. Giving sensitive awareness to myself. So taking a moment, and now I'm noticing my breathing, and I'm noticing a little bit of tingly energy because I'm excited to be having this conversation live with you. So I'm noticing that. And then I'm bringing my energy out, and I'm noticing you, Maya, and I'm seeing your beautiful smile, and I'm seeing that curiosity, and I'm feeling that excitement and joy that you have, that in your passion for this topic. So then I bring the energy back to myself. So I'm looping my awareness back to me, and I might decide to just move my body a little bit and notice my heart beating. And then I bring my attention back out to you, and maybe I add a little curiosity with that. And what can I notice now about you? And then I bring my attention back to me and back to you. So it's a way of purposely moving my awareness, rather than what normally happens is I'm having a conversation with you, and then all of a sudden I think, oh, I forgot about that thing. And my mind is kind of off, roaming over there. And then I remember, and now I'm back with you. And then so it's, our attention is always moving. The loop of awareness allows us to move it by choice. And the more that we practice it, the more we're able to actually do it. So I think that's one of my favorite tools, presencing, being in the here and now, allowing myself to do that.
Absolutely. I'm learning. I have that voice, your voice now in my head when I'm
I hope it's a good voice, a gentle and loving voice.
It's a good voice. Just when I notice that I'm in my head and not where I'm supposed to, where I'm physically at, I remember to say, "Here I am. Here I am,"
Yes.
and being present. And because you've introduced me to the big leap, and the fact that sometimes we have that ultimate. No, I already
the
forgot.
upper limit.
We have the upper limit when we're feeling good and we feel like, okay, I've had enough. We can sabotage that a little bit. So what I've noticed is, through the understanding of the big leap, is when something good, when I'm just feeling good, just allow myself to feel it. Just be in it and be okay with feeling high. In many ways, it's like I feel good, and just allowing that. The other day, I'll tell you briefly, I did a webinar with another team, and it was for the women's health interest member interest group. And then we all hung up. I hung up because I didn't want a lot of people sticking around, but I wanted the core team, which was three of us, to kind of connect and talk about it. And we didn't. So the next day, the physician that's part of that group, she messaged me and she said, Maya, I was on such a high, I couldn't sleep. It was midnight and I was still awake. And I could have talked about this. And I said, I know. Why didn't we do that? Why don't we bask? I don't know if that's the right
Yeah,
word.
it's a
Why
good,
don't we just
good
allow
word.
our just stay in what feels so good? That's part of what blue zone living is just
Mm.
allowing yourself to be in that good space and being okay with that. So
Yes, I love that. I love that because it's a curious thing to think. Why would I have trouble feeling good?
yes.
Us humans do. Us humans do. And you can just think about your own experiences. You go on a vacation and then, oh, you forget something in the hotel, or it can be really simple things. And what it really is that we lose presence because we have a lot of energy going on, more energy than we're used to. So grounding that energy, and I love that you brought up that example of when you were with your friends and you had that wonderful experience, that in future you could stay on the call and ground yourselves together. So feeling your feet rooting, so feeling my feet and imagining that I have roots that are going down into the ground that are mingling with all of the root system under the earth. These that I learned about I can't remember what the book is. I don't know if you know it, but The Invisible Life of Trees or something like that. And the thing I learned was that trees, their roots all connect and they help each other. And this brings me back to the blue zones. This idea of us being connected to ourselves allows us then to be able to be a source of connection for others. And that certainly is one of the keys to longevity, is that we actually do connect with, like you said, not just other people, but also with life force itself, to recognize that there is something greater than us, whatever that might be. If you're a spiritual person, you might think of that as the universe or God. If you're not a spiritual person, you think of this as the pulse of life. It's the life force, the energy that's existing. And so if we're allowing ourselves to really connect with it and honor that there's more going on than just me, that seems to be another key to longevity. So gathering in community, and they focus on, in the blue zones, spiritual community, because that's what it is in most of these communities. What I notice is that any gathering, like you went to a concert, that to me is a spiritual experience, being with people in their genius, in their ikigai, making this music, and everyone's there in that same energy. To me, that is a dose of like eating the best food you ever could, right? Taking like the most amazing vitamins through juicing or whatever it is, right? I don't know if you feel
Yeah.
the same.
Yes, absolutely. Even before that, we had this fine dining experience. This was in Fort
Mm.
Worth, which is like a sister city about 45 minutes away from us. And prior, we had dinner at this. If you ever come to Dallas, I have to take you there. It's a whole fine dining experience with small plates. You
Mm.
have either 4 course or 8 course, and but everything is deliberate.
Mm.
And one dish, the first thing you start off with is designed to open up your palate. And when you first see it, it's like it looks like a tea. You with a spoon, you gave me a spoon to have this tea.
Wow.
But as you take the time to savor and notice what is happening, it's a very presencing experience. And
Mm.
then I paired it with like non-alcoholic drinks so that every drink went with every dish. And it's usually something like a tea. You would love
Ooh.
it. And they
Can't
even
wait.
yeah, they even ask you to set aside about 2 hours for this dining experience because
Wow.
it's not rushed. It's just such a beautiful experience, and that again is appreciating those. You don't. It doesn't have to be the finer things in life, but taking the time to appreciate what you're doing, who you're doing it with in the moment. And if you're
Mhm.
just tuning in, let me just kind of go over the 4 things that we talked
Mhm.
about again about the blue zones and why Michelle is here. And also, Michelle, I don't know how much more time you have,
Yeah, we've got a
so
bit of
please let me.
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So if you're just joining in, we were talking about the Blue Zone series, docu-series that's on Netflix that I think it's called uh, Longevity, How to Live to 100. And this is based on Dan Buettner's work that he's done over 20 years, where he just went around the world and looked for people that are living to 100 and more without chronic disease, without so much complication. And so we're talking about the docu-series that we both really enjoyed. So one of the things that he emphasizes is just eating wisely, and he touches on how each of these communities eat. He talks about natural movement, basically being active in your community, going up and down the stairs, walking rather than driving, depending on the community. He talks about connection, that sense of community that a lot of these areas called the Blue Zones um, have, and then positive outlook. I remember Michelle, when he was talking about Okinawa, there was a group of older women that had gathered and they were playing games. They were still, I mean, and laughing. And one of them said the key to living longer is laughter and not holding that anger.
Yes.
So yeah, I know I'm working on that.
Yeah, well, that actually is incredibly important, and it's funny because I don't think we have valued that in the American culture, to value joy, to value laughter. It's like, get the work done. That's the important thing. And then maybe later we might have time for enjoyment. And that's really the opposite of how people are doing this in the Blue Zones, where they're savoring each moment, whatever they might be putting their attention on. They're allowing themselves to be there and to enjoy, and to I know one of the principles is to how do they say, downshift stress, I think,
Yes.
right? So laughter is certainly a de-stressor. And I know for me, I made a commitment to joy and to joyful living, realizing that that inspires good in the world. I used to feel maybe a little sense of guilt, like, well, how can I be feeling good when there's so many people suffering in the world? And what I recognized is that I can be a beacon of light through bringing my aliveness and my joy and allowing people who are struggling to be able to turn towards light and have some light. And so I think that in these places, in the Blue Zones, there is that sense of supporting one another through whatever's happening. And every single centenarian that I've heard, just there's a kind of lightness that's there. It's like, they realize what's most important. And yeah, so I agree. That's one that I think that I want to put more and more attention on, is how much joy I can bring into my life, how much laughter, and am I being a source of joy and laughter for other people as well?
You know how I have often said I'm an introvert, which is why having, a podcast works for me. Because as an introvert, I actually appreciate one-on-one conversations more so than a group setting. However, it does not mean that I don't like gathering with people and being part of a community. And I was messaging you yesterday, telling you about a potluck that I was going to. And I don't know if I told you this, but this is a couple that they've been doing this work much longer than we have, Pat and Diane Doyle. They way longer. They both are cancer survivors. They open up their home to offer potlucks and just a support system for other people. And yesterday they were concluding a book study, one particular book that they've read. They always read books. And they invited, and I think the China study.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They invited Dr. T. Colin Campbell and Kim Campbell on a virtual setting to join us and answer questions and to talk about his work that really changed how we see whole food plant-based nutrition. And so, but what my whole point about all of this, we had this interaction with them. We had a potluck setting. Everybody cooked a healthy meal. And you come home, like Chris and I come home and we feel like our cup has been filled by being around like-minded people, just good people in general. And that is a reminder to me, Michelle, of how important community is most of us live away from our families,
Yes.
or don't have a good support system. So finding a group through activity, it could be a hiking group, a walking group, a nutrition group, support group, so that you can connect. I mean, I know that I've moved around a lot in my life, and I have always gone to meetup to find some group to join.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great
So
idea actually. Because that makes me think of like, well, how if I'm away from my family, how do I find family? How do I create a sense of family for myself, the chosen family? And I love that you just rattled off a whole bunch of different ways to do that.
yes,
I think following something that I love will lead me to being with other people that I'll have something in common with, right? So if I love knitting and I go join a knitting group, great. We might be really different humans, but we have that one thing that we can share.
yeah,
So I love, yeah, meetup is a great idea. I think spiritual community can be seeking out those kind of things. Retreats can be one of the ways to do that. So making sure that we prioritize this to realize that it is actually important for our health and our well-being
absolutely.
to connect with others. Yeah, regardless of how much, like you said, being an introvert. I was surprised to find out how introverted I am. I always thought I was an extrovert because I love people and I love to be with people. What I didn't recognize is that I require alone time in order to refuel. And I require more alone time than other people, that in my story is, than other people, think is a normal amount or whatever that is. So I think honoring that as well, learning how to give ourselves the nutrients that we need, whether that's connection or connection with
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes, connection with ourselves. I know that I like being a companion to myself. I like taking myself on walks. When
Yeah.
I was single, I would take myself to dinner, like on a date,
Oh, that's
and I would just treat myself like, let's go here. I used to pretend I was Rachel Ray because she traveled a lot
oh,
when
that's
she
so
was
great.
younger. Michelle, I love the idea. I didn't know that until right now that you actually saw Dan
Mm,
Buettner years ago. You met him in person, which probably he was more available, accessible than today. How
that's true.
cool is that? And I've only learned about him since I became plant based. I've
Mm,
been plant based 7 years, and so I think it's so cool that you met him. And then watching the docuseries, I learned even more about him. Had no idea that he has cycled the world, that
yes,
he had
I didn't
broken
either.
records.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it so this has been a passion of his. And again, we're going back to kind of ikigai, that when you just continue to pursue that, which is so gratifying and gives you a sense of purpose, like you just never know where that will lead you. So
Exactly. I mean, he has completely changed the world through his curiosity and his following. It was like, I forget the story and definitely recommend where we've come together today to talk about this docu-series about the blue zones. So really recommend watching, because in that first episode, I learned things that I hadn't known. He might have mentioned them back in the day when I saw him. It was so long ago that I don't remember those details. But I'll tell you what did stand out to me was one woman who lived in, I believe this was from Loma Linda, which is the California, is the only blue zone that's in the United States. And there was a woman who was 102 or 101, something like that. She was still driving, and there was this footage of her driving Dan, and it was like a little bit like, maybe that's not such a good idea. It was very funny. But he followed her around, and she would go to the senior center. And here she was, maybe 20 years older than a lot of people that were in there. And she was volunteering and bringing joy to this place. And that was one of the things uh, that never left my head. Because I was so struck with how incredible it could be to be that engaged in life at that age. And obviously her body was whatever happens to us as we're going to 100, right? It's not moving, it's not operating like when we were 20 years old. But there she was showing, she lifted weights, she had these little um, dumbbells or whatever you call it, and just simple. And that's the thing. Now I'm jumping around, but I do love the move naturally idea. And that is something, as a coach who spends a lot of my time on my computer, I'm like pointing over there because it's over there. So I sit, I'm standing right now, so I have a desk that goes up and down. So that's something I highly recommend to people, to allow yourself to be up and moving if you're on your computer for a lot of the time, and taking short breaks. I go outside, I walk around for even a minute or two, refresh myself, give myself a little touch of nature, come back inside, and then get into my work. So I'm wondering, Maya, what are some of the ways that you help yourself to move naturally, to be a more active, even though you spend a lot of your time on a computer?
Right. Well, you can see I'm in my office space. It's an
Mm-hmm.
extra bedroom that we have, my home office, my home studio, and this is where I'm at all the time. I'm at home. And my mom recently said to me, "Oh, you're so lucky that you get to be at home." You know, and I'm like, "No, it's work all the time." because because
Yeah.
what happens is, and but I appreciate it. What happens is I do need a break from I've never been a person that likes to be in the office setting, like sitting down at a computer. I've done that. I know it's not part of my personality, but I do what I have to do. I do get up, Michelle, and I do several things. I'm always running around. I'm
Mhm.
doing laundry. I'm washing
Right.
dishes. I'm preparing my meal. I'm making my bed. I'm vacuuming. I do a lot of physical in my environment because I like my house to be clean. So I'm vacuuming, washing the rug. I've been known to paint the walls. Like I do different things in my environment because it's in order for me to have clarity and work on projects, my environment has to be clean and organized.
Mm.
And so I am active. And then sometimes what I'll do is, of course, if my dog is with me, then taking him out in between when I need a break. Okay, puppy, it's time for us to go for a walk. And
Nice.
then what I do is, because I'm very lucky, I'm very close to grocery stores and Target and all of that. I get up
Mm.
and I go run errands. And that's
Mm.
a way for me to break up that long day of continuous working and concentration, because I too don't
Mm.
always want to be thinking and problem solving. I need a break
Mhm.
from all of that. And then that may be a time also when I enjoy a good audiobook. I feel like I'm very active. And so now what we're
Mm.
doing is we're walking in the evenings to our local gym. So
Oh,
we'll walk over there
wonderful.
and then do a workout and walk back, and that enjoy, and it allows for a good conversation with my husband too. Like
Oh,
it's
that's
our
so
time.
good.
Yep.
I love it. I'm looking at the time. Speaking of being in our ikigai and enjoying, we'll have to wind it down in the next minute or so. And I'd love to have another conversation with you. So anytime.
Excellent.
I love these principles and love talking about it. Maya, you said so many important things there about the easy way that we can bring these principles in. You know, you're doing your laundry, you're cleaning, you're taking those little breaks to do that. So if somebody works in an office, they're not going to be able to do that, but you can get up, move around the office, walk around the office. You can also just get up at your desk and simply do things like move your arms up and down. I learned a routine. I wish I could think of the name, so maybe I'll have to post it on this recording. A woman who's 90 years old shared it with me. And and it's basically like 4 moves. You do these squats and then you do these arm movements, and it's fabulous. It's really simple. It takes, I can't remember how many minutes it takes. It's very short. I do 4 rounds of that. And that has been, it's become a daily, I do it at least 2 times a day. And it's so simple. So I can just step away from my desk. You might feel funny doing that in your office, but you might inspire other people to actually have their bodies work better. And you mentioned the thing about the brain. It's important to do the physical movement in order to release some of the stress that we create through our high concentration.
Mhm.
So I know that that's another aspect of moving, and moving our energy is so, so important.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I want to make sure, like we hang up, I'll put links and information on this post. But if we just want to throw out your website right now, anyway, for people that are listening, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about your work?
Oh, thank you. MichelleandDean.com. So it's very simple. MichelleAndDean, MichelleandDean.com. And so, yeah, thank you, Maya. Thank you so much. I would love to come back and talk to you again.
Yes.
Mwah! Lots of love.
Mwah. Thank you so much. I'm going to walk around in a good mood today because I have this opportunity to chat with you. So thank you again. Have a
Yeah,
wonderful day, Michelle. And thank you, everyone who tuned in.
Yeah, thanks
Bye-bye.
so much. Bye-bye.